Welcome to Make Your Mark podcast, where guests share their experiences, insights, and tactics to help you accelerate your business. So building, scaling, and monetizing your business is made easier. And I will be your host, Kay Suthar. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Make Your Mark podcast. And oh my goodness, I have an amazing guest for you. She has been in the podcasting industry for quite some time and in the media industry for even longer, right? So she knows what she's talking about when business owners want to get visibility on a global scale. Now, her name is Angel Tuccy. Now, she is an award-winning speaker, radio host, TV producer, PR media specialist, and 15-time best-selling author. That's right, you heard it. She and her husband live in Orlando, Florida, within an hour of 3 of their young adult children. With her help, her clients have been featured in thousands of major media publications, television, radio, podcasts, magazines, and stages. I told you she's the one you need to know, right? Now, Angel runs the online podcast networking group, Need a Guest, where she brings podcasters and guests together. Before starting the Need a Guest group, Angel spent 12 years in broadcasting, where she was awarded Most Influential Woman of the Year. Oh my goodness. Best Morning Talk Show and the Best Talk Show Team. Angel has booked thousands of media interviews for her clients all over the world. Now, her top-selling book, Get Discovered, is a how-to example for creating media exposure in less than 90 days. She shares some of the best ideas she's learned from hosting over, get this guys, 2,500 broadcasts and interviewing over 5,000 guests. So she knows exactly what you're talking about, and she's talking about, she knows the media inside out. Now, her unique approach to media is why her clients call her the media matchmaker. Please welcome Angel to the stage. Oh my goodness, I am super excited to have you here.
Oh my gosh, Kay, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, well, that explains all the wrinkles, right? And the gray hair. I'm like, oh, that girl's been a little busy.
Not at all. You have done so much, right? And honestly, you look like you're in your 20s. Right, so whatever you're doing right.
Using the Zoom filter.
Oh, I see.
No secrets here. I tell everybody, right? I love doing recordings on Zoom because they have the best filter for all of us ladies. If you're not using it, I highly recommend it. And so thank you, Kay. Thank you. It's been an incredible career. It's been an incredible journey. And I feel like I've just tapped into just like the beginning of something really tremendous as we've now shifted. I have a background in broadcasting, 10-year career as a radio talk show host, hosted my own season of a television show, editor of a magazine. You and I were talking in the green room before coming in. Yeah. I was the chairman of the board for my local chamber of commerce. Mm-hmm. So super involved with helping organizations, entrepreneurs, authors, speakers, coaches leverage media exposure, leveraging what I call other people's audiences in order to build their own. But a few years ago, during the peak of the pandemic, tapped into this new industry that, even though it's not new, it is still up and coming. It is still developing. It is barely started. I think we've only seen the tip of the iceberg, but that is the podcasting industry. And I started a brand new Facebook group during the pandemic, and we can get into the story of how and why and all that started. But the world of podcasting is absolutely exploding. If you are looking as a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, a speaker, an author, a coach, and you're looking for more visibility, you're looking to get your message out in front of more audiences, being a podcast guest. Yes, I said guest, not necessarily host. But guest on other people's podcasts is the fastest and most fun way. And the fastest way to convert into clients is by being a podcast guest. And so that's the space that we're in. We're watching it explode. And I'm super excited to be here today and share that story with you and your audience.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. There's so many questions I have for you in regards to podcast guesting, right? So much. But before we get into that, I would love for you to share with our audience a little, a background how you kind of transition from being on radio and TV into, going into the whole podcasting industry. Where did that come from?
Right. Almost seems like a step backwards, right? You're like, okay, wait, almost like radio and television. Why podcasting? Like, how did we get into that? And I'll tell you, I had a fantastic career in radio. I started as a podcaster. I
No.
had a podcast show that got discovered by my local radio station, and they invited me and my co-host to start a daily radio talk show. So I did not even have a background in broadcasting, in journalism, but I had a podcast, and it was all about featuring stories of great customer service. So we would highlight companies and talk about their customer experience and what they were doing to elevate the customer experience. And as a way for marketing, right? Testimonials, referrals, leads, all of that. And so we had a show all about the customer experience, and our local radio station invited us in to host our own radio show. And I will tell you, I never saw myself as a radio show. That wasn't my future. I always thought I would be a travel agent, like when I grew up, and book vacations, right? And so and I had a fear of public speaking. So standing in front of audiences and speaking in front of crowds, even just even a classroom size, never wanted to stand up in front of an audience. Absolute fear of public speaking. But I took my headphones off that first day in the studio, professional studio, our producer on the other side, in and out of commercial break. And I took my headphones off after that first episode, that first broadcast. And I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be a radio host. I didn't have to stand in front of an audience. It was private. I was in a studio all by myself, right? We went to commercial break every, 15 minutes or so. My notes were in front of me. And I was just pretending I was talking to my mom, right? Because I knew she's my biggest fan. And if I just pretend I was talking to my mom, everything was going to be okay. And I loved it. I absolutely loved being in broadcasting. It was an incredible season, but life happens, right? Things change. We had changed studios. We had just some different things. And I ended up in a really toxic work environment. And it was really awful. I was doing the morning drive. I was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be in the studio for a 5 to 8 a.m. broadcast. My health was declining. My metabolism was shot. Like it was absolutely time for a change. And I had an incredible blessing one day. I walked into my studio ready to host. At the time, I was now doing 2 back-to-back shows, the Positive Business Talk Show, and I was hosting a Christian lifestyle show for moms in minivans, right? Taking their kids to and from school. My producer called me in 5 minutes. I mean, like right before we're ready to go on the air, and said, Angel, we've made a change. And handed me a cardboard box, filled it with my stuff, and was escorted out of the building. Yes. It's very dramatic in radio and in media. They don't want you to go rogue, right? They don't want you saying anything. So they don't want you on the air. So they kind of do it fast, right? And just rip the Band-Aid off. But really within the next 24 hours, anything with my voice, my name, my image, anything, right? Completely erased as if I never even existed. Wow. It was so depressing. It was so depressing.
Is it normal to like?
It's very normal. That is how it is handled. That is absolutely how it is handled. Yes, you'll be listening to the radio to your favorite talk show host, and the next day they're just gone. No explanation. They don't even know, right? No, I mean the explanation I was given was we've made a change, and so it was. I was my daughters, my 2 oldest daughters. That's like right in that same time frame, had decided they were going to move from Denver, which is where we were living, to Orlando. So far, far away from home. My son was going to college. My husband and I married, 20 years, empty nesters, the writing's on the wall for this girl to just tank, right? You have no life, you have no career, your kids are gone, right? Like it could have been an incredibly depressive time for me. But God had been prepping me for that journey. Just 6 weeks before, I had taken a workshop, a 5-day class on becoming a public speaker of all. right? I mean, who knew, right? And was given an opportunity to go and travel to a conference and teach at a workshop on how to do PR, how to do your own PR.
Hey,
And so I decided,
this means you were ready to take that next plunge. Otherwise, you wouldn't have decided to do the workshop, right? You were ready.
oh, right. So it was, just, improving my craft, right? Like trying to be better. Like, we took voice lessons, just things that you would do to just kind of improve your craft, right? Because I was often asked to be an MC at events, right? Nonprofits and charity events and go to galas. So I was given a lot of opportunities in broadcasting, right? So it was super fun. And so these were just things I would do to just improve myself and to be the best I could be. But it really did. I was prepared. So next year and a half, traveled as a public speaker all across the country, went to London and spoke at the Best You Expo in London. And we just had a great time. And I thought we were flying high. Like I was teaching how to get booked in the whole ecosystem, radio, television, magazines. I had a great program. I had a kind of a group course that I took folks through. We did events, 3-day events where we put together your whole media strategy. We were on fire, Kay. And then the pandemic hit.
Oh
And
gosh.
screeching to a halt, right? But again, I was ready because what did we do? We all went into our rooms and turned on our cameras and started doing virtual events and
Yes.
virtual and broadcasting. And it was like coming home for me. I had
Oh,
a microphone, I had my studio. I started hosting a daily show, a morning talk show, every single day. I thought it would be temporary, just, for a couple of weeks while the world was shut down, and then I'd be back on the road again. But we did end
boy,
up
were we wrong.
right, completely wrong. 200 episodes of that,
Wow.
production. And during that time, I had people always would come to me, Kay, and say, Angel, I need a guest. Right. I'm doing an event. Do you know somebody? I'm doing this. I've got this opportunity. Do you know somebody? I need a guest. People would come to me with that request. I'm like, I do. I'm like, I know Kay. She would be dynamite. I'll put you guys together. Right. I know this person. I'll put you together. And so one day I was doing a virtual summit where it was a panel and they had 5 panelists, all in media and PR, and asking us all questions about how do you get exposure? Where do you go? How do you connect? How do you prepare? Like all of this stuff. And the person in front of me, they asked her, Angel, or this other woman, where do we go to find these connections? How do we meet journalists and hosts that are looking for guests? And at the time, there was a very popular resource, and maybe you've heard of it, called Help a Reporter. And I had used yes, I had used it as a radio host to get guests on my show. So I was very familiar with it. But as she was describing it, I was just thinking to myself, Kay, I'm like, you have a moment, right? You're on a panel, everybody's kind of sharing their thing. You have 5 minutes to make an impact on this audience.
Right.
And when she said that, I thought, why would you send them to somebody else's resource? And it was just this internal dialogue that I was having with myself while on camera, right? I'm on camera, smiling, by the way. On camera, and you don't want to have that resting witch face. If you stick your tongue right behind your front teeth,
okay,
it'll relax your face.
Oh,
You can smile and you can just have that resting nice face. It takes all the pressure off this jawbone, right? And you can stay, right? So if you're ever on television and you never know if the camera is going to be on you or on stage, right? And so
I can tell you a few stories about that. Oh my goodness. I used to work in politics.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right? And I used to always go to question time, and I was a campaign manager, right? So which meant that I was with the camera and I was always on the front seat,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. I did not know that my face tells a story. Right? I didn't know I was so expressive. Right? And so we're taking pictures because we're like the campaign team, but
Yes.
there's also cameras taking pictures of us, the crowd, right?
Correct. Yes.
And I was told there were so many photos that they couldn't use because of my face.
Oh.
Right? Right. And I had to learn, right, to keep a smile on or a straight face. And like when someone will say something, I'll be like, really?
Yeah, right. Your eyes are super expressive. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And all of this. And I was like, oh my goodness, how do I even like work this out? Right. So
yes,
that's a great tip. If only I knew that back then.
Yes. Well, there's my tip for how to keep a smile and keep a good expression on your face, because you just never know when the camera's on you. So here I am on camera and I'm listening to this. I'm having this internal dialogue because one of the things in broadcasting and exposure, I have a phrase that exposure without a call to action is wasted exposure. And what that means is you can go out and you can meet people, you can have all this conversation, but if you're not driving that audience back to your sales castle, right, your funnel, your world, you are missing out on this great exposure. So she's giving somebody else's resource as the call to action. Right. Go check out this other person. So it was this conflict in me, right? As I'm having like listening, paying attention, trying to add value, but really struggling with what I just heard, and probably having a face like you would have had in politics, going, that's not going to fly. That's not good, right? You just kind of blew your moment. So every now and then, you just have like this moment where you trust your gut and you take action. Trusted my gut. I pulled up a domain site, right? And I bought the URL needaguest.com.
Wait, how long ago was this?
2020. So we're now February 24 is the recording of this. So 3.5 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So brand new. So not very old, right? 3 years in a business you're still like in that baby step, right? Yeah. Kind of a toddler in business development. And so I bought needaguest.com because people would always say, Angel, I need a guest. And that was the phrase that came to me. And so I bought the URL and then I went over to Facebook and I opened up a group called Need a Guest. And I pointed needaguest.com to the Need a Guest Facebook group. Ooh. And I did that in minutes, right? Because, you can just did that off screen, right? Pulled up another tab on my screen, did that off screen. And honestly, Kay, I thought if this group gets 1,000 members in it, I was going to be thrilled, because I encourage my guests, my clients, to do 2 features a week, right? 2 interviews a week, or right back then, do a talk and then backfill it with a podcast, right? Do a magazine, do a podcast, right? Do two interviews a week. And so my thought is, if I had 1,000 subscribers in this group, that is plenty of media matchmaking going on back and forth. Well, the group grew, right? So it hit 5,000 and it took about 2.5 years and the group hit 10,000 members in it, which was December of 2022. Wow. Yeah. December 2022, it hit 10,000 members. And then people started reaching out to me. They wanted to buy the group, right? It just really started to take off and explode. And today the group has 30,000 members. So 2.5 years to get to 10,000, 15 months to triple in size. But it is an incredible matchmaking site and I should back up a little bit. During that time also, people would come to me, my clients would come to me and say, Angel, I don't want radio, television, magazines. I only want to get booked on podcasts. Oh. I'm like, really? Just podcasts? Like, why? Right? And I had like 3 people in a short period of time who said that to me. I only want to get booked on podcasts. Well, I had been using podcasts almost like as my backup. Right. If we can't get radio, if we can't get television, if we can't get that, then let's just throw in a podcast for good measure, right? Like, let's just, because we can't get anything else, let's just throw that in, not realizing how incredibly valuable and easier and better conversion and easier to manage and easier to like all the things, right? You don't have to travel. You don't have to get on an airplane. You have zero downtime. I mean, before you and I got on, I was working, I was in my office. When we get done, I'll be back in my office. So no downtime, right? At all. The preparation, I don't have to do a PowerPoint presentation. I don't have to pack up. I don't have to have swag and banners and all the things that go into, right, traveling as a speaker. There's less cost involved for, most podcasts are free. There's no charge. Maybe there's a few now coming on board trying to add an admin fee to it. And I don't know. I have mixed emotions about that, right? They're like, well, it costs me something. Like, it's cost of business, right? So I have mixed emotions about that. But in many cases, very low or no cost to get involved. The audience is better, right? It's more targeted. It's more engaged. They're listening while they're on the go. People have far more time to add audio into their day than any other medium out there. I mean, I could go on like 30 reasons of why being a podcast guest is the best way to build your audience. And so 2 interviews a week. We now have a network of 60,000. We have 2 Facebook groups that we run.
Wow.
1,000 people. And we help our clients get booked on 2 podcasts every single week, guaranteed. And we've actually elevated it because we only get them booked on top podcasts. So 5% rankings or more, top ranking podcasts and guaranteed. And it's growing every day. And
wow,
I'm so excited about it.
it is totally exciting. And so one of the things that I'm hearing you say is that it's not just about the numbers. It's not just about getting 30,000 members, but it's about the quality as well. Mm-hmm. Quality goes a long way, right? Like ranking 5%. I mean, that's awesome, right?
Well, because now there's a lot of brand new podcasters coming on board, and I love supporting brand new podcasters coming in. But as a guest, you want to make sure that you're in front of an audience, and that podcast has an audience, a built-in audience. And not that we are snubbing our nose, right, at the others, but if we're going to leverage it, I mean, think about if you're going to spend your time investing, supporting this podcast host. And this is the other thing. We really want to come on alongside and be a partner to these podcast hosts. Right? How can we support you? How can we elevate you? How can we get your show even more visibility and exposure? And as a guest, that's part of our role. Yes. Like, let's share this and get this out. It's better for all of us. Absolutely. And so that rising tide lifts all ships. So quality is imperative. I mean, if somebody's going to pay me to put them on a show, I should put them on a good show. So, but we do have the community that has the gamut, brand new shows just starting up. They're still developing their audience. And I love those too. But if you're going to pay me to put you on a show, then we do have some criteria of what we're looking for our guests.
So just to confirm, is this group just specifically to be booked on podcasts?
It is. So when I started it, It was everything.
Right. Yeah.
Television, radio, magazines, a lot of events for, summit speakers, right? A lot of things. But what we are focusing on and what we've been focused on for the last 15 months is podcast guesting. So there's still some other things in there that, kind of on the fringe, but what we promote and what we highlight and what we are really attracting are podcast hosts looking for guests and guests looking to get booked on podcasts.
I love that. Okay. I want to go into a little bit more nitty-gritty. This community sounds awesome, right? Like if you want to get booked on podcasts, like you've got everybody there, right? They're not anywhere else. They're there, right? They're in your group.
They are. Even if they're in other groups, they're still in our group. Like they find their way. They do both. We connected with a gentleman out at Podfest. We were just at Podfest a couple weeks ago, and there's some other resources and sites for getting booked. And we just find that people that are on that site are on our site too. Like if you're looking to get booked, so we all play nice in the sandbox
Yeah.
together, because it's like we're just all here to help our podcasters grow, get more exposure, and guests get booked on great shows.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now you mentioned, if you're on a show, for being interviewed, right, to have some sort of call to action, right, that brings them back into your community. Now, do you have any kind of additional resources in the group to show people how they can go about doing this? Because it's actually mind-boggling to me that a lot of people don't have a call to action, even when they get in on podcast, right?
Right.
So do you have any kind of, I guess, criteria or advice for our listeners as to what even could be the basic call to action that they could actually have?
I do. This is actually kind of our secret sauce, Kay.
Ooh.
Because getting booked for us is the easy button.
Yes.
Right? We've dialed that in and getting booked, but converting that traffic into leads, because now what we do is we want to help you convert your podcast interviews into book sales calls, at least into growing traffic and building your audience. Yeah. And so one of the things that we do, and if you go into our Need a Guest group, we're going to send you our call to action as well, which is a 3-episode series, but it's another podcast. We call it a pop-up podcast. Okay. So imagine right now that because people listen on podcasts, we know the audience already likes podcasts. Mm-hmm. So a great call to action would be keep them in that medium, send them another podcast. What we tend to do is here's an ebook, or here's my Facebook group, or like, here's this 5-day challenge, or here's this workshop. So we know they're podcast listeners. So let's send them a podcast to listen to. So we teach our clients to record a 3-episode series that we call a pop-up podcast, giving them incredible value, teach them something amazing. So our pop-up podcast teaches you how to go and get booked right away using our Facebook group. We're going to teach you exactly how to scroll through that Facebook group, what to look for, how to connect, and how to get booked immediately on your first podcast, because that's what people want. And so we've created a 3-episode series where we walk you through that. By sending the audience, here's another thing, right? They can take on the go, teach them something valuable. They've got time in their day, right? More time for an audio than any other visual, right? And it's not a sales pitch. It's not an infomercial. It is actual value that gives a result. And so we teach that process to our Media Firestorm clients, but we also lead by example. We drink our own Kool-Aid. We go and get booked on podcasts, 2 book podcasts every week. We lead to our call to action. We encourage people to go to our Facebook group, and that's where they can get this pop-up podcast episode, 3-part episode series. And it's free. And it's usually the stuff that we teach to our clients who pay us $8,000, right, to be in our program. But we give it away for free. So that's the thing. Give something away that actually has value, that people want to know, that they want to learn. And then the only call to action is if this is valuable to you and you want to learn more about what we offer, then book a call with our team. That's it. That's it. And it works. It's lovely because it's so valuable and it's so good. You're actually doing the thing you said you would do, right? You gave them value and you taught them something and they got a result. And it qualifies and filters out those that might want to work with you, find their way to you. And those that just want the information, then you give that to them with your blessing.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Oh my goodness. Like the compassion and just the whole giving of just giving it away. I love that. Oh my goodness. So there's another question that popped up in my mind as you're talking about audio. Now we know that podcasting has evolved, is evolving, and is even turning into video podcasts, right?
Yes.
So what are your thoughts about video podcasts versus just audio?
I'm so glad you asked, because that is great. Because everybody's saying, the video podcast industry is growing too, and it is. Mm-hmm. So my answer is yes, and always do audio, because there's more time in our day, right, for anything else. In fact, I heard a speaker recently say, if people are watching your video while they're driving, you're going to have audience churn. Right? Right? So think about that. So your audience, like, they just will always have more time in their day to listen to something while they're working out, commuting, traveling, work, all of that. So yes, start with audio, but always give all of your content multiple lives, right? Put it on video, write a blog about it, have the article, like do the multiple things with that same piece of content to repurpose, reuse in all the ways that you can. That's how you're going to capture different audiences in different spaces. So my answer is yes, audio and video. Right. My husband just started a YouTube channel. My son's got a YouTube channel. He does gaming, and he just got got mentioned in 4 different gaming bloggers were talking about his YouTube channel. So if you've got it on YouTube, there's multiple ways to monetize your podcast then as well. And so all audio, yes, because of the audience and the availability, but add that element of video because there are other, and we could have a whole list of all the good things that happen there too.
Amazing. I love that. I love that. Now, I know at this point, people probably have their mouths dropped to the floor and they're like, oh my goodness, I need to join this community. I need to know more about Angel. So where can they go to join your community?
I'm so glad you asked, right? Yes. And so think about this. Every host will always ask you this question. It would be the thing that flustered my radio audiences the most too, Kay. Like as we were interviewing people in radio, they are like, they just didn't know how to answer. So my answer is go to needaguest.com. Needaguest.com is going to give you access to this incredibly thriving Facebook group, finding guests and getting booked. And we are going to give you our 3-episode series on how to leverage that Facebook group and get booked on your first podcast within the first 24 hours. And that is free. Again, the training that we normally give away and teach to our clients who spend, right, thousands of dollars to work with us throughout the year. We are giving it away for free, and they can get it at needaguest.com.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Oh my goodness, guys, you have to go ahead and go to that website, go to needaguest.com, get the training, be part of that community, and it looks like you're going to be thriving, right? You're probably going to be getting so many podcasts that you're going to be booked on. You won't know what to do with yourselves, right? Which is a great problem to have. But definitely go ahead, go to that domain, needaguest.com, and start getting booked on podcasts. Angel, thank you so much for coming to the show. So many golden nuggets in such a short amount of time. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been an incredible pleasure for me too.
Awesome. I totally love it. Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.